All right, so now we got the API key. I hope you got your API key. And essentially what you want to do is create a config file. This is one way of doing it. There are multiple ways of doing it, but this is one way you can hide your API key from being pushed up with Git, especially if you're going to use, push this to production or something and you don't want your API key shown to the world. So what you can do is you can go over to your git ignore, and then you can basically type in, here I've done that already, source, and then the config file that you're going to create. And I'm actually going to create that file over here in my source folder called config.js. And so that'll bring that up, and you'll notice that it's kind of like grayed out compared to the rest of the files. And here I can just create a simple variable. This is going to be a JavaScript object, and I'm just going to say API key here. And then I'm going to paste in my API key. And so there it is. So now it's available. And then all I have to do is just go back over to my app, which is on this side, and then import the config file. So we'll just say import config from config. And then now I just want to be able to see that I have the API key somewhere. So I'll just pull this in by saying API key and then save. And then if I come back over here and type in star again, I can see that my API key is also getting added to my results. So that's cool. So I have the API key. Now all I want to do is make the fetch request. So all I have to do is go back over here and look for the URLs that I want to start working with. So remember, it's fetch and then the URL. So the URL is going to be omdbapi.com followed by the question mark. So let's go ahead. Actually, it's good practice to create like some variables before you do anything. So I'll just start off by saying URL is this, and then I'll load it in with config. Actually, I need to write in API key just like they tell you to. And then I'll use plugin syntax from JavaScript ES6 to pull in my config API key. And then finally, what I want to do is I want to also add in my term. So the term was the T variable that we saw over here, and that's a title to search for. So it's actually title. So I'll use the and separator. When you're using URLs, you use the and separator to separate variables. And I'll say plugin syntax and give me e.target.value. Okay, so there is the entire URL. We can get rid of this statement here, and we can instead look at URL instead, just to make sure we're sending a nice URL before we go and fetch. And I'm going to just pass in the URL here, and then using the same syntax, then data JSON, then, and if you're not familiar with this, you'll want to check out JavaScript LA's ES6 guide, because that'll help you understand fetch. So here, console log data. So nothing special, just basically I want to make a simple fetch request at this point and just see what I get back as far as data. So I'm going to go over here, and now I'm going to type in star, and let's see what we get. Okay, I got response or something went wrong, and let's take a look and see why. All right, so okay, well, it went wrong because I put in title here when it should just be a T. So let's redo that. Sometimes you have to make sure the API is correct, otherwise you're not going to get back anything. So let's do it again. There we go. Now I'm getting back the titles. Star Wars, I'm getting St. Vincent. So every time I'm typing, it's going to the API and then making the request. And so because I'm not done yet with what I wanted to type, we need a little bit of a delay. So let's do that in the next video. We're going to add a special library called Lodash, and what it'll allow us to do, one of the features of Lodash, is we can debounce, or basically slow down, the amount of times we call a function. So I'll show you how that works and how you can wire it up in React. And in doing so, that'll make this app a lot more cool. And then finally, we'll wire up our fetch so that when we get the data, we can send it back down to our props. by setting the state of our app and letting React re-render everything. And that'll conclude this entire tutorial, and you'll know at that point how to create your own movie search app. So I hope you're excited. The end is near.